I never thought I'd be sitting here, typing this all out on Reddit. Honestly, I never expected my life to go so far off the rails that I'd be pouring my heart out to strangers online. But I guess that's how things go sometimes, completely unpredictable. It's crazy how fast everything can fall apart, and when it does, you're left scrambling, trying to make sense of it. I never thought she would do something like this. Not her. But I guess I didn't know her as well as I thought. So yeah, my wife cheated on me. And I know that sounds like a story you hear 1,000 times on here, but trust me, when it happens to you, it's like the world just stops. The funny part is, I should have seen it coming. Maybe a part of me even did. We were different, right from the start. She's 9 years younger than me, and from the moment we met, there was this energy about her, vibrant, full of life. She had this way of lighting up a room, making everyone laugh, and I guess I got swept up in that. I wasn't like her at all. I'm your standard, run-of-the-mill guy. You know, the kind of guy who works his ass off all day, comes home, cracks a beer, watches the game. I'm not flashy or exciting. I was steady. Reliable. And maybe that was my downfall. At the start, we worked. Despite the age difference and the fact that we came from different worlds, it was good. She was younger, full of dreams and ambition, and I was already settling into my routine. But I loved her. God, I loved her. I guess I thought that was enough. But as time went on, I could see it, the way she looked at me, like something was missing. It wasn't always like that. Early on, she was affectionate, always wanting to spend time with me, laughing at my dumb jokes. But after a few years, something shifted. It was subtle at first, but I noticed. There was this sadness in her eyes. Like she was slowly growing disappointed. Like I wasn't living up to whatever fantasy she'd built up in her head. And I tried, you know. I tried to be more exciting, to do the things I thought she wanted. But I think, deep down, she started seeing me as boring. Hell, maybe I am boring. I work my job, keep to myself, and I don't exactly have grand dreams of being a millionaire or traveling the world. That wasn't me. It was her. But none of it, justified what she did. I'll never forget that day. It was a Wednesday, and I was at work, feeling like complete crap. Migraine, nausea, the whole deal. By noon, I couldn't take it anymore and decided to head home early. The last thing I was thinking about was this. I just wanted to crawl into bed, shut the world out, and sleep it off. As I turned the corner onto our street, I noticed something right away, a car. A shiny, black sports car, parked in front of our house. And it sure as hell wasn't ours. For a moment, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a friend's. Maybe she was having coffee with someone. But deep down, I knew something was off. I could feel it in my gut. I parked in the driveway and just sat there for a second, staring at the car. It was one of those moments where you know something's about to go down, but you're trying to convince yourself it's all in your head. I didn't want to be that guy, paranoid, jumping to conclusions. But every instinct was screaming at me that something was wrong. When I walked inside, the house was dead quiet. Too quiet. Normally, she'd have the TV on, or music playing, or something. But that day, nothing. Just silence. I called her name, but there was no answer. Then, I heard it. Faint noises coming from upstairs, from our bedroom. At first, I thought maybe she was cleaning or moving things around. But as I climbed the stairs, it hit me, those weren't the kind of noises you make while cleaning. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. I pushed the door open, and there they were. Some random guy, naked, right in the middle of fucking my wife. I couldn't even move. It was like the air had been sucked out of the room. My brain couldn't process it. There she was, under this stranger, and she didn't even look surprised to see me. She barely reacted. It was like she'd been expecting me, like she didn't care that I was standing there, witnessing her betrayal. Her eyes locked on mine, and there was no guilt. No shame. Just this cold, detached look that cut right through me. The guy? He panicked. I'll give him credit for that. He scrambled off her like he'd been caught in a robbery, grabbing his clothes and stumbling around, trying to get dressed as fast as possible. He didn't even look at me. He just ran, leaving his shoes behind as he bolted out the door. But I didn't care about him. I didn't even feel angry at him. My focus was on her. And you know what she did? She didn't apologize. She didn't cry. She didn't even try to explain. She just sat there, pulling the sheets around her, and said, "You're too old for me. I can't do this anymore. Too old." That's what she said. Like I was some outdated piece of furniture she was sick of looking at. I could feel my stomach drop, and my legs nearly gave out. That's all I was to her now. Old. Boring. Disposable. I asked her, what the hell is going on? But she just shrugged, like it didn't even matter. Like our whole marriage, the years we spent together, didn't mean a damn thing. "I'm leaving," she said. Calm. Casual. Like she was announcing she was going to the store to pick up groceries. She got up, slipped into her clothes, and started packing a bag like it was the most natural thing in the world. I stood there, dumbfounded. "What do you mean you're leaving?" "I mean I'm done. This isn't working for me anymore," she said. There wasn't an ounce of emotion in her voice. I tried to stop her. I asked her why, what I'd done wrong, if there was anything we could fix. But she just looked at me with that same cold stare and said, "You're just not enough." After the fight and watching her pack up her things and walk out of my life, I was left in complete silence. The house felt emptier than it ever had before. I didn't know what to do with myself. I just sat there for a while, staring at the door, trying to wrap my head around what had just happened. My wife, or I guess ex-wife now, was gone. And she didn't look back once. I was still trying to process everything when, out of the blue, I heard a knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a second, I thought maybe she'd come back. But no, it wasn't her. It was her mother. Now, let me tell you about my mother-in-law. If you didn't know any better, you'd think she was way younger than she is. She's always been attractive, and for her age, she's really kept herself in great shape. Tall, elegant, with these sharp features that make her look like she could have stepped out of a magazine. Her long, dark hair had barely a hint of gray, and she had this confident way of carrying herself that turned heads, even if she wasn't trying. And beyond her looks, she's smart, probably one of the most intelligent women I've ever met. I always admired that about her. She's about 10 years older than me, but honestly, you wouldn't even notice the age gap. The way she talks, how sharp and witty she is, you almost forget she's from a different generation. Her husband, my father-in-law, died a few years ago in a car accident. It hit her hard, but she's tough. She handled it with this quiet grace that's kind of intimidating. When I opened the door, she gave me this concerned look. "I heard," she said. Apparently, my wife had already called her, but she didn't tell her the whole story. Just that we were breaking up. She wouldn't tell me why, she added, stepping inside. I wasn't sure how to start, but I needed to tell someone. And she was standing right there, looking at me with those same eyes her daughter had, except hers were kinder, warmer. So, I told her everything. Every single detail. How I came home early, how I found her with that guy, how she barely even cared. I didn't leave anything out. By the time I finished, she was quiet for a moment, just taking it all in. Then, without a word, she stepped forward and hugged me. It wasn't one of those quick, polite hugs either. It was the kind where you really feel the comfort, like she was trying to squeeze all the hurt out of me. When she pulled back, she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I raised such a monster." That hit me hard. I didn't expect her to apologize for her daughter's actions, but there was something about hearing those words come from her that made me feel less alone. She sighed, shook her head, and said, "Let's not dwell on it. Come on, let's have a drink. I have a really nice bottle of wine in the car. We could both use it." I didn't argue. I mean, what else was I going to do? Sit around in the empty house, spiraling in my own head? So, she went out to her car, grabbed the bottle, and came back inside. We popped it open, and before I knew it, we were sitting on the couch, drinking, talking about life, relationships, everything. It was surprisingly easy to talk to her. We laughed about stupid things, reminisced about better times, and, for the first time since everything blew up, I felt good. We weren't talking about her daughter, or the mess my marriage had become. We were just two people, sharing a moment, trying to forget how shitty things were for a little while. The hours passed faster than I realized, and before I knew it, it was getting late. She looked at the empty wine bottle and chuckled. "Well, I guess I can't drive home now," she said with a laugh. "I'll call a taxi." She grabbed her phone and ordered a ride. I stood by the door with her while we waited, and when her ride finally pulled up, she turned to say goodbye. She hugged me again, but this time it was different. Softer. Longer. She leaned in to kiss me on the cheek, just a polite gesture, nothing out of the ordinary. But I don't know if it was the wine, or the fact that I hadn't felt this kind of closeness in a long time, but when she went for my cheek, I must have moved at the same time. Because somehow, our lips met. It wasn't a passionate kiss. It wasn't intentional. But it happened, and for a split second, we both froze. I could feel the warmth of her lips against mine, and I knew she felt it too. When we pulled back, we just stared at each other, wide-eyed, both trying to make sense of what had just happened. There was this awkward silence, neither of us knowing what to say. She cleared her throat and smiled nervously. I should go." "Yeah," I muttered. "Yeah, of course." She left without saying anything more, and I stood there at the door, watching the taxi drive away. When I finally went back inside, I collapsed onto the couch, still in shock. What the hell had just happened? My wife had walked out on me, and now, her mother? I couldn't even wrap my head around it. I just sat there, staring at the empty wine glasses, feeling like I was in some kind of weird dream I couldn't wake up from. The divorce process was like a slow-motion car crash I couldn't stop. One day, I was married, and the next, I was signing papers and watching my entire life crumble in front of me. She initiated everything, of course. As soon as she walked out, it was like she couldn't get rid of me fast enough. Paperwork showed up faster than I thought possible, like she had a lawyer on standby just waiting for the moment. It was brutal. I wasn't prepared for how much it would hurt. Even after everything, after catching her with another guy and hearing her cold words, I still felt gutted. Every morning, I'd wake up, and for a few blissful seconds, I'd forget. Then reality would hit me like a ton of bricks. She was gone. The person I'd built my life around, the person I thought I'd grow old with, had blown it all to pieces. And now she was getting half of everything. It got to the point where I didn't know how to cope. I'd lie awake at night, my mind running in circles, replaying every moment, every argument, every sign I missed. It was driving me insane, so I did what people usually do when they can't handle the weight of it all. I sought professional help. I figured a psychologist might be able to pull me out of the pit I was in. But honestly, it didn't do much. Sure, I talked. I let out all the anger and pain, but the sessions felt more like I was just going through the motions. Nothing changed. The numbness, the ache inside me, it all stayed the same. The only real connection I had during all this was with her mom, my mother-in-law. As strange as it might sound, we kept in touch. She'd call me every now and then, checking in to see how I was doing. I didn't expect it, not after everything that had happened with her daughter, but it was nice. She'd ask how I was holding up, and sometimes we'd talk about things unrelated to the mess that had become my life. It was refreshing, talking to someone who didn't have any expectations of me, someone who wasn't judging me for falling apart. One day, she called me out of the blue. I was lying on the couch, just sort of staring at the ceiling, trying to shake off the cloud that had settled over me. When my phone buzzed, I glanced at the screen and saw her name. "Hey," I answered, trying to sound normal, even though I wasn't. We made small talk for a few minutes, nothing too deep. And then she asked, "Are you home right now?" "Yeah, I'm here," I said, a little confused. "Good. I'll be over in half an hour." She hung up before I had a chance to say anything else. I sat up, wondering what she was planning, but I figured she just wanted to check in, maybe talk in person. But when the doorbell rang, I wasn't prepared for what I saw when I opened the door. She was standing there, wearing this stunning, deep red evening dress. It hugged her body in all the right ways, making her look even more beautiful than usual. Her hair was down, framing her face, and she had this smile that made my stomach flip. In one hand, she held 2 bottles of wine, and in the other, a fancy box of chocolates. I just stood there for a second, speechless. "You gonna invite me in?" she asked with a playful smile. Yeah, of course," I stammered, stepping aside. She walked in like she owned the place, her heels clicking softly on the floor, and set the wine and chocolates down on the kitchen counter. "I figured you could use a little company," she said, looking around the house like she was taking it all in. "It's been a while since we had a good talk." I was still in shock. I mean, we'd stayed in touch, but this? Her showing up like this, looking like she was about to go to some high-class event, was not what I expected. She popped open one of the wine bottles, poured us both a glass, and motioned for me to sit with her on the couch. "Let's just relax," she said, her voice soft, reassuring. "You've been through enough." The evening was incredible, honestly. Better than any I'd had in months. We drank the wine, ate some of the chocolates, and just talked. It wasn't forced or awkward like I feared it might be. We laughed, a lot. We shared stories, reminisced about old times, even some moments when my ex-wife wasn't a total disaster. For the first time in what felt like forever, I actually felt good. Not numb. Not weighed down by everything. Just good. At some point, we put on a movie. I can't even tell you what movie it was because I wasn't paying attention. My focus was on her. The way she was sitting next to me, so close that I could feel the warmth of her body. The way her lips curled into a soft smile as she sipped her wine. I couldn't stop looking at her, and honestly, I don't think she was paying much attention to the movie either. It happened so naturally that I didn't even realize what I was doing until it was too late. I leaned in, and before I knew it, we were kissing again. But this time, it wasn't like the awkward, hesitant kiss we'd shared before. This one was full of passion, full of heat. I could feel everything, her desire, her warmth, the way her body pressed against mine. One thing led to another, and we ended up in my bed. I won't lie, it was the best sex I've ever had. There was something different about it, something deeper. It wasn't just about the physical part. It was like we were both letting go of everything, our pain, our loneliness, and just losing ourselves in each other. It felt right, in a way I hadn't expected. When I woke up the next morning, for a brief second, I thought maybe it had all been a dream. But then I turned my head, and there she was, lying next to me, her hair spread out on the pillow, her face peaceful and content. I couldn't help but smile. But as the morning light filtered into the room, I started to wonder. Is this right? I mean, this was my mother-in-law. Sure, my marriage was over, but was I crossing a line here? I don't know, Reddit. Maybe this is a mess, or maybe it's exactly what I need right now. What do you think? Several weeks passed after the divorce was finalized. My wife, well, ex-wife now, and I had completely separated. It was strange how quickly everything unraveled, from catching her in bed with another man to signing the final papers. You'd think I'd feel some kind of closure, but honestly, I just felt lost. But in the midst of all that, something unexpected happened. Her mom and I started seeing each other more. A lot more. It wasn't like I planned for this to happen. It just did. She started coming over more often, initially just to check in, make sure I was doing okay. But before long, it became a regular thing. We'd spend the evenings together, talking, drinking wine, and laughing about things that had nothing to do with my ex or the chaos she'd left behind. It was nice. She'd even started staying the night, and soon enough, it felt like she was almost living here. We both knew it was a strange situation, but we couldn't deny the connection that was building between us. It wasn't just some casual thing anymore, either. We were comfortable with each other in a way that felt deeper than anything I'd had in a long time. After a while, we started talking about how ridiculous it was to keep sneaking around. We weren't kids, and we weren't doing anything wrong. So we decided to stop hiding. We agreed that we could start going out in public together, like a real couple, without constantly looking over our shoulders. But there was one issue that kept hanging over us: her daughter. My ex. Her mom was worried, and understandably so. I mean, how do you even explain a situation like this? She knew it was going to be a bombshell when her daughter found out, but I don't think either of us were prepared for how bad it would get. We started small. Nothing too public at first. We'd go for walks in the park, grab coffee, just simple things. And for a little while, it seemed like we might actually get away with it. But, of course, nothing stays hidden for long. One afternoon, we were walking through the park, just enjoying a sunny day, when her phone rang. I noticed the shift in her immediately. She glanced at the screen, and I could see the tension building. It was her daughter, my ex-wife. She answered, and right from the first word, I could hear the venom in her daughter's voice, even though I wasn't close enough to hear the exact words. Her mother's face tightened, and I knew things were about to explode. Turns out, someone had seen us walking together and had the brilliant idea to snap a photo. They sent it straight to my ex. I don't know if it was out of spite, gossip, or just boredom, but that picture was all it took to light the fuse. My ex was furious. She wasn't just angry, she was enraged. The second she saw the photo, she called her mom, and I could tell from the way the conversation escalated that there was no calming her down. I couldn't hear every word, but I heard enough. "What the hell are you doing with him?" she yelled, her voice sharp and accusing. Her mom tried to explain, to justify it, but it was useless. My ex wasn't listening. She was livid, calling her mom every name in the book, accusing her of betrayal, of going behind her back. Her mother kept her voice calm, trying to reason with her, but it was like talking to a brick wall. The argument spiraled fast, with my ex getting more and more heated, and her mother finally losing her cool. I've never seen her mom like that. She was always so composed, but this time, she snapped. "I didn't raise you to act like this," she yelled back, but that only made things worse. By the end of the call, they were both screaming at each other. Her daughter hung up on her, and that was it. They stopped speaking after that, completely cutting ties. I thought maybe things would calm down after the dust settled, but I was wrong. My ex didn't stop there. She went online and posted about everything, how her mother had betrayed her by getting involved with her ex-husband. She painted us as these horrible people, like we had done something unforgivable. And, of course, the internet ate it up. Suddenly, we were the subject of everyone's gossip. People who didn't even know us started chiming in, calling us disgusting, saying things like we had crossed some moral line. It wasn't just online either. Friends of hers, people I had known for years, started turning their backs on me, too. I'd run into someone at the store, and they'd give me that judgmental look, like I was some kind of pariah. It didn't matter that the marriage was over, or that we were both adults who had every right to live our lives. The story had already been spun, and people were quick to label us as villains. It wore on us. A lot. We tried to ignore it at first, telling ourselves that we didn't care what people thought. But the constant judgment, the whispers, the dirty looks, it was like being hit from all sides. Even her friends, people she had known for years, started distancing themselves. It was like we were radioactive. We started talking about whether or not this was worth it. We cared about each other, but the weight of all that criticism, the strain it was putting on our lives, it made us question everything. We didn't know if we could keep going like this, constantly under the microscope, constantly feeling like we were doing something wrong when, deep down, we both knew we weren't. So here I am, Reddit. We've got something real, but I'm not sure if it's enough to withstand everything that's coming our way. Have any of you been in a situation like this? How do you even know if something's worth fighting for? A few weeks passed, and things were tense, to say the least. We were still dealing with the fallout from the public judgment, the whispers behind our backs, and the complete breakdown between my ex and her mother. But somehow, we were still holding on, even as the pressure mounted. We didn't really talk about it much, about whether this relationship could survive everything, but I think we were both just trying to live day by day, hoping things would calm down eventually. One evening, though, everything changed. I wasn't expecting her to come over that night. I was just relaxing after a long day, trying to clear my head, when I heard the doorbell. When I opened the door, there she was, my ex's mother, but something was different. She wasn't her usual calm, collected self. She looked scared. Nervous. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Immediately, I could tell something serious was going on. I motioned for her to come in, and we sat down in the living room. She was fidgeting, not making eye contact, and I could feel the tension in the air. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though my heart was starting to race. She took a deep breath, looked up at me, and said, "I'm pregnant." For a moment, I didn't even register what she said. It felt like time stopped. Pregnant? It didn't make sense at first. But then, as the words settled in, the reality hit me like a freight train. She was pregnant, with my child. We sat there in silence for what felt like forever, neither of us knowing what to say next. My mind was spinning, trying to process the weight of it all. This wasn't just some fling or casual relationship anymore, this was real. This was huge. "I didn't plan for this," she said quietly, her voice trembling slightly. "But, it's happening." I could see the fear in her eyes, and to be honest, I was terrified too. We were already dealing with so much, my ex, the judgment from everyone around us, and now this? It felt like we were about to step into a storm we weren't prepared for. But as scared as I was, there was also something else. Something deeper. I realized in that moment that I didn't want to lose her. I didn't want to walk away from this. "We can do this," I finally said, reaching out to take her hand. "If you want to keep the baby, then we'll keep it. And we'll figure it out. Together." She looked at me, her eyes wide, as if she was waiting for me to say something different. But I meant it. I wasn't going to let fear or judgment stop us from living our lives. "We'll be okay," I reassured her. "It's not going to be easy, but we'll make it work." After what felt like an eternity of silence, she nodded. "I want to keep the baby," she said softly. I want us to be together, no matter what anyone else says. That was it. In that moment, we made the decision. We weren't going to let the world tear us apart. We were going to keep the baby, be together, and deal with whatever came our way. Over the next few days, we talked about what our future would look like. We both knew staying in the same city wasn't an option. The criticism, the judgment, it was too much. We needed a fresh start. So, we decided to move. Sell our houses, pack up our lives, and start over somewhere new. Somewhere no one knew us. It wasn't an easy decision, but it felt like the only way forward. We started putting things in motion, talking to real estate agents, looking at new cities where we could settle down. It was scary, the idea of uprooting everything, but at the same time, it was exciting. It felt like we were finally taking control of our lives, doing what was right for us instead of worrying about everyone else. We didn't tell anyone at first. Not my ex, not any of our so-called friends. It was our secret. And as the weeks went by, the plan solidified. We sold our houses, found a new place, and started preparing for the move. It's strange, really. A few months ago, I thought my life was falling apart. I thought I'd lost everything. But now, even with the uncertainty, the fear, the chaos, I feel hopeful. Like maybe, just maybe, we can build something better from all this. So, here we are, Reddit. We're about to leave everything behind and start over. I don't know if this is the right decision, but it feels like the only one we can make. We're going to have a baby. We're going to try and make this work, no matter what anyone thinks. I'm terrified, but I'm also ready. Ready to leave the past behind and build a new life. What do you think? Would you do the same? Update. It's hard to believe, but a whole year has passed since we made the decision to start over. I remember how scared I was, wondering if we were doing the right thing, if leaving everything behind was the right choice. But now, looking back, I can confidently say it was. We have a son now, a beautiful, healthy baby boy. He's everything I never knew I needed, and I can't even begin to describe how happy he makes me. Becoming a father has changed my life in ways I never imagined. It's funny, because I remember how much I used to fight with my ex over the topic of kids. She was dead set against having them, no matter what. I tried to accept it, tried to convince myself that I'd be okay with that, but deep down, I always wanted to be a dad. Now, every time I look at my son, I realize just how much I would have missed out on if I'd stayed in that old life. He's brought so much joy into our lives. Those sleepless nights, the endless diaper changes, none of it matters when I see him smile or hear his little laughs. It's hard to believe that just a year ago, I was stuck in a miserable situation, thinking my life was falling apart. Now, I have a family, a real family, and it's everything I could have hoped for and more. My partner, my ex-wife's mother, has been amazing through all of this. We've grown so much closer since moving away. The criticism and judgment we faced? It feels like a distant memory now. We don't care what anyone thinks anymore. We have each other, and we have our son, and that's all that matters. As for my ex? Honestly, I have no idea how she's doing, and I don't want to know. After everything that happened, I've completely cut her out of my life. I don't need that kind of toxicity anymore. I'm sure she's moved on, just like I have. And to be fair, I don't really care. She was a part of my past, but she doesn't have a place in my future. I wanted to post this update to thank everyone who's followed along and supported me through all of this. Your advice, your encouragement, it meant more than you know. When I first started writing all of this, I was lost, angry, and confused. But now, I'm happier than I've ever been. If there's anything I've learned, it's that life can take you in unexpected directions, and sometimes, the things you think are the worst moments turn out to be the start of something beautiful. So, thank you to everyone who stuck with me during those dark times. I'm wishing all of you the best of luck in whatever battles you're facing. Trust me, things can get better, sometimes in ways you'd never expect.